They called him the Butcher of Lahore, the monster who hunted the streets, the man who drowned 100 souls in acid. But behind those names lay a man whose evil knew no bounds. Javed Iqbal wasn't just a serial killer. He was a nightmare, a living embodiment of terror. A man who brought fear to every mother, every father, and every child in the bustling streets of Lahore. It all started innocently enough, or so it seemed. He was just a businessman, blending in with the crowd, but no one knew the darkness that simmered beneath his calm exterior. While the city lived, worked, and slept, he watched. He waited. His prey, the most vulnerable, the forgotten, the street children. One by one, these children disappeared, swallowed by the night. Parents searched. Faces were plastered on walls, yet there was no trace, no sign of what happened to these lost souls. The police had no answers. The city began to murmur. Rumors spread like wildfire, but no one knew the unspeakable truth. Not yet. Javed Iqbal moved with the precision of a hunter. He knew where to find them, the boys who had nowhere to go, no one to care for them. "I'll take care of you," he would whisper with a twisted smile, offering food, shelter, warmth. Little did they know they were being led to their slaughter. He had perfected his method, a dark ritual that began with a simple promise and ended in unimaginable horror. Javed Iqbal moved with the precision of a hunter. He knew where to find them, the boys who had nowhere to go, no one to care for them. "I'll take care of you," he would whisper with a twisted smile, offering food, shelter, warmth. Little did they know they were being led to their slaughter. He had perfected his method, a dark ritual that began with a simple promise and ended in unimaginable horror. Imagine this, a young boy barely 13 sitting alone by the roadside. His stomach growls in hunger, his clothes are tattered. Javed approaches, his voice soft, kind. "Come with me," he says. "I'll give you food, a place to stay." Desperation takes over. The boy follows. Little did he know, it would be the last decision he would ever make. Inside that house, if you could call it a house, Javed's true nature emerged. Behind the doors, it was a chamber of nightmares. Chains hung from the walls, tools of torture scattered across the floor, and in the corner, large drums filled with acid. His signature method of erasing his crimes. This wasn't just murder. It was calculated, cold-blooded torture. He wanted to leave no trace of his victims, no bones, no flesh, just memories dissolved in acid. Some say that he would watch them as they cried, their small bodies trembling with fear. He took pleasure in their suffering. First, he would bind them, tightening the chains until they could barely move. Their screams, they only fueled his sadistic desires. He enjoyed watching the light drain from their eyes, enjoyed the final moments when they realized there was no escape. Then came the killing. Slow, deliberate strangulation, his hands cold as they squeezed the life out of them. But that wasn't enough for him. No, he wanted to erase every piece of their existence. That's when the acid came into play. He'd pull out a knife, carefully slicing through their lifeless bodies, cutting them apart. One by one, their limbs were severed, dropped into the acid where they dissolved into nothing. The bubbling, the hissing, it was the sound of a soul vanishing. Forever. Neighbors would later recall the strange smell that came from his house. Some called it chemical, others said it was like something rotting. No one could pinpoint what it was, but now they know. It was death, slowly melting away in those acid drums. Months passed, and more children disappeared, but Javed Iqbal was smart. He kept trophies of his victims, not in the form of bones or trinkets, but in a journal. A sick, twisted ledger of death. In this journal, he wrote down the name of every boy he killed, over 100 names, each one etched in ink like a grim reminder of his reign of terror. Every entry was a life lost, a family broken, a soul that would never be found. And then one day he made a move that shocked the world. He wrote a letter to the police, confessing to everything. He didn't run. He didn't hide. Instead, he boasted about his crimes, detailing every horrific act with chilling precision. Over 100 boys, gone, all dissolved, nothing left behind except their names in his cursed journal. When the police raided his home, they weren't prepared for what they found. The stench of acid hit them as soon as they entered, thick and suffocating. The walls, the floors, everything told the story of unspeakable evil. And then there were the drums, still filled with the remains of his victims, dissolved into a toxic soup of acid and bone. The trial was swift, but no sentence could ever truly match the horror of what Javed Iqbal had done. The judge, disgusted by the sheer brutality, sentenced him to death in a way that reflected his crimes. He would be strangled, dismembered, and his body dissolved in acid, just as he had done to those innocent boys. The public demanded justice. But that justice never came. Before the sentence could be carried out, Javed Iqbal was found dead in his cell. The official report claimed it was suicide, but many believe he was silenced, perhaps to spare the nation from seeing the horrific sentence played out, or perhaps by those who didn't want him to face his true punishment. But even in death, the shadow of Javed Iqbal lingers. The streets of Lahore, once filled with the laughter of children, now carry the weight of 100 lost souls. Their families, still haunted, still broken, left with nothing but memories of the ones they lost to a monster who walked among them. And sometimes, in the darkest corners of the city, whispers still echo. The whispers of those boys, calling out from the beyond, their voices faint but clear. Remember us. Don't let us be forgotten. Javed Iqbal's story isn't just a story of evil. It's a reminder of how deep the darkness can go, how evil can wear the face of an ordinary man. But more importantly, it's a reminder to protect the most vulnerable among us. Because monsters like Javed Iqbal don't always live in nightmares. Sometimes they walk among us,